This is my introduction to Sailing Wilson on YouTube. I'm Captain Wannabe Ian. Yes, I do have a sailing certificate. In fact, I have two. Whether I can sail or not is another story. I own a 2013 Island Spirit catamaran, 38 foot in length, and I really love my boat. I'm sure you've heard this before, but please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel and push on the notification bell. That'd help a lot. By the way, please share my videos with other people you know. I'm currently on the hard stand at Rebec Island Shipyard, which is in the top middle of the photograph. Rebec Island is a resort island just off the main island of Langkawi in Malaysia. Here's a Google Earth image of my boat just beside the blue dot on the hard stand. And here's a photograph of my boat just after I finished putting the copper coat on. I've still got a lot of work to do. This was the beginning of August and we had some really bad weather for a number of days, which slowed down my progress. The video doesn't give a good impression, but you can see the water gathering up at the bottom of the roadway, and it's built right up and over the easement between the two drains. And in fact the drain had stopped draining and actually the back pressure had started pushing the water back across, back underneath the boat towards the marina itself. There was also high winds and that made the boat move on the stands, and that worried me. But you can see in the background there's a waterfall created at the top of the roadway, and that was a bit of a bother because it flooded into the workshops of the chandlery and the other buildings in that area near the chandlery. Here's a still image of that water that had become a waterfall, and here is an image of my boat from the chandlery, and that was after it had subsided somewhat. I have nothing but praise for the Rebec Marina hard stand crew. They moved these small stands back a little bit so that I could get to work of the areas underneath the stands and sand it back and put epoxy on and copper coat it. And here you can see in the image the old tape, and underneath that some the work that had to be done with grinding back the old copper coat. And here's an image of the old copper coat. There wasn't much to show there because they're only small stands, but it's still this is what it turned out like after I'd ground out and sanded the area ready for epoxy. I put on 3 coats of thickened epoxy on each of the 4 areas I had to do where the small stands were, and on the rear starboard and port transoms the area is a lot bigger and you can see the shine from the epoxy. And then after I'd put on the second coat of copper coat, you can see the difference between the two. Unfortunately I didn't mix it right, or there was something wrong with the way I did it, and you can see the colour difference is quite significant, and I think I put too much copper into the mix, and also it seemed to gel up and there were some areas that didn't stick, so I'll have to do that area, those little areas, those little spots again. The next job I did, I decided to put on a blue pinstripe along the hole between the copper coat and the lower deck, and I bought the materials from Langkawi Yacht Supply, a gentleman called Jack, and he recommended a cheaper product called Ocean Master. It's a 3-to-1 mix blue polyurethane paint that can be used in a spray gun, and you can see the spray gun ready to be used. And the idea was to pour 3 parts of the main Ocean Master blue into the bowl, and then 1 part of the hardener, and then 30% of the thinners. So I went about doing that, and you can see my blue finger because I'd forgotten to put my gloves on, and I used my finger to wipe up the residue of when I poured. I can never stay still long enough to pour, so I had to clean it up, clean the can up with my finger so I wouldn't waste anything or get it all over the place. And you can see I'm putting in 30% of the thinner, but you can see the splash. The top of the can's design is so poor that you couldn't get a proper pour, and it just splashed everywhere. But I measured it on the side of the cup. It was easy to measure the 30%. It may be a bit of a waste, but you buy so much of this thinner and it's all left over. So then I went about mixing it with a stick. Unfortunately, I'd left it to the middle of the day and it was quite hot, and as usual I forgot that you're supposed to get it on in the cooler temperatures of the morning. Prior to mixing the paint, I put on the blue 3M tape, which is the only product I would use, just on the edge of the copper coat, and my wife went about putting a pencil mark the width that I wanted to put on, about 3 inches, and you can see that the pencil's taped to a yogurt container so that we could get an accurate, or close to accurate, measurement of the area I wanted to paint. Then we went about putting on another strip of blue tape. Then we put this plastic right around the boat, which has a prepared sticky edge, so it makes it easier to put on the 3M blue tape. And then we put another lot above, so that we only had the area needed to be sprayed, and all of the rest of it was protected. We ran out of plastic, so we had to cut up some other drop sheets and stick them on. And here's a spoiler alert: it's 40 years since I did too much of this spray painting, so there was a number of mistakes, but you can see the way I was using a shuffling motion of my feet to spray only the areas I wanted. I wasn't swinging my shoulders wide enough, so the arc of the sprayed area that I wanted to cover wasn't wide enough. In that 3 inches I sprayed the top, the bottom and the middle to cover the whole area, and then I walked along and did the second coat and final coat, and then I went and walked along again and just tidied up the job. This area, you can see that I was starting with a reasonable amount of 1, 2, 3, but then this is about the 5th time that I had problems with the gun clogging up. Wayne from another boat pointed out I had too much air adjustment on the gun, and also it was just so hot at 32 degrees that it was clogging the gun up. But here you can see some areas underneath the paint where I hadn't filled and prepared the surface well enough, but 3 other people suggested, because it was so close to the waterline, not to bother to try and fix it, and it turned out rather well. You can see just a little bit of up and down on my line, but otherwise it turned out really, really nice. Because I ran out of 3M blue tape and drop sheet, the starboard side still to be done. So here's some images of before and after the copper coat and the blue stripe. You'll see that the old copper coat was on the hull of the boat when the boat was hauled out and put on its stands, and then here it is after I'd removed the copper coat and the white fiberglass showing up. Here's an image of the finished copper coat, or nearly finished copper coat, and then here's an image of the boat with the port side with the blue stripe. In the next video I'll be concentrating on some small jobs because I'd hurt my back and I also had a cyst removed from my back, but all these little dings and things needed to be cut out and filled with fiberglass and matting, and the video was produced by myself, and it's the end of another exciting video of part 17 of my haul out and progress report at Reback Island Shipyard, August 2021.